Well, I kind of find it funny that his whole thing is the guy couldn't get it up, so he blamed the Russians for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's literally the whole point of the whole point of the movie starts because a general can't get it up and thinks it's because the Russians
are poisoning the water.
Disturbed our precious bodily fluids.
Marin's Rick, have you ever heard about fermentation?
Welcome to Idiot Plot, a comedic podcast critiquing, discussing, and analyzing the media industry through reviews, debates, and historical deep dives.
Hello and welcome to an episode of Idiot Plot, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Mouse. I'm David Yanish, and joining me today, as always, are my co-hosts Alex Ovidal.
You can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Justin Neisel.
Yep.
You can't think of any quotes off the top of his head.
Well, that was the only quote I could think of, and I was quickly searching, and I couldn't find anything.
Yep. So if you couldn't figure it out, episode today is the classic satire by Stanley Kubrick, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. We're going to get deep in depth into this classic satire. Also talk about other satire movies and the satire genre as a whole, along with probably some Kubrick loving. Like,
I'm gonna stand Kubrick.
Yeah, I know. There's tons of Kubrick standing here. But before we get started with that, we're gonna do a segment we haven't done in like 2 months. It's been a very long time, but we're gonna do another segment of what we watch. So to start us off, the big movie I want to talk about that I watched recently that is getting lots of views, but at the same time is going under the radar is a Netflix animated movie, The Mitchells versus the Machines. This is a film by Sony Pictures Animation about a family that's on a road trip taking their daughter to college when it just so happens the robot apocalypse happens. A Siri-like phone app hacks into a bunch of robots and decides to send humanity into space. It's a really bizarre sounding movie, but I have to admit, I really freaking liked it. I think it's sad how under the radar this movie's going because of Netflix picking it up. I know the reviews for it they're pretty divided, the response. I think the writing's really funny. I think the animation style is sometimes it's kind of Uncanny Valley-ish because it's like weird like mocap bodies with like animated faces. It doesn't always work super well, but when it does, it looks really stylish. Like this kind of has that Spider-Verse style to it, which makes it look really slick. It's really funny. Voice acting is really good, but it's also a really character-driven movie. It's about like this family that's kind of breaking apart, coming together as the apocalypse happens. And it's a movie we don't really see a lot of, especially in family movies, which it deals with some heavy subject matter. It's an adventure movie. It's an action movie. We don't see these, and I think that Sony is going to regret selling this to Netflix because I think they could have made a lot more money potentially had this went to theaters. I think this could have been a really big hit.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing out right now, really.
Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer for this, and I wasn't completely sold on it. But I did know, like, I think Lord Miller and Lord Miller were producers on it, so I was gonna give it a shot.
Yeah, I think it's worth a shot, really. Like I was kind of skeptical, but I saw some good reviews, and I was bored one day at work. I shouldn't have said that, but we have off time at work, so I watched it on one of my long off time stretches.
I mean, the animation kind of reminds me of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
It's like Meatballs mixed with Spider-Verse,
which is also a very underrated movie.
Spider-Verse?
No, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Spider-Verse is not. I actually would agree with you on that. So Sony Pictures Animation has actually been doing a really good job. They just get a lot of flack because their most popular franchise is the Hotel Transylvania series, which isn't very good.
Yeah.
But their non-Hotel Transylvania movies are actually all right.
I mean, the first one was okay, but then they kept making more and more. It's like, okay, stop.
Yeah, I mean, those succeeded because of Genndy Tartakovsky's direction, because that dude's amazing. And some of that is also seen in this. I feel like he kind of defined their style going forward. And I'm really happy with that. This movie also, this is maybe counts as a spoiler, but this movie does LGBTQ representation better than any movie I've seen in a very long time.
They don't look stereotypical.
Well, there's a character who is LGBTQ. I guess I don't know what their exact identity is, but they are part of the LGBTQ community, and they just are. It's not their character. It's not their whole character. It's not the focus of the story. It's just this character is just a member of this community, like, and that works really well. It's that full acceptance without calling a bunch of attention to it.
Those are always the best ones.
Yeah, it's subtle, and I think it works, especially since this is a family movie, and putting stuff like that is always a risk because 1 million moms likes the couple.
Well, there's one of those in How to Train Your Dragon 2, and I was quite shocked when that happened too.
But this did that really well too.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the examples of implied representation that actually worked. But we're not going to get into that today. That's a whole episode in itself.
I don't think we have the wherewithal to talk about that either, though.
No,
we're not people. People should be talking about that. But anyway, yeah, Mitchells versus the Machines. I think it's well worth a watch. Whether you're a family or an adult, I think it's got some entertaining values. Justin, I think you should watch it. Overall, I know that I could say it's the greatest movie ever made and still wouldn't watch it.
You are absolutely correct.
But I do think that it is really good. I think it's going to fly under the radar, and I can't wait to see it lose to whatever Disney Pixar movie wins at the Oscars for animation.
It'll probably be that Luca movie or whatever.
It'll be one of them. It'll be Luca, or they got another one coming. Ray will probably be nominated if that's part of that cycle, because Disney. But
yeah, auto win.
Yep, auto win. But anyway, Justin, how about you go next? What did you watch in this 2-month span?
Well, on Amazon Prime, you can watch this show called The Goes Wrong Show. And basically, it's all these people putting on a play where basically they're trying to play the play straight, but everything around them is going to hell. Lights are falling. Props are being broken that shouldn't be. Stage crew shows up randomly through a window when they're not supposed to be there. And one of them is like, he's like, oh, we had the play was called 90 because it's really hot in Alabama or whatever, but the set designer screwed up and decided to make each of the rooms at different angles. So one's at like a 90-degree angle, one's flat, one's upside down, and just hilarity ensues with all the stuff that goes wrong. And all the actors are great because they're playing it straight, but yet also reacting to everything that goes wrong and still trying to play it straight. It's very well done.
So is this like a hidden camera prank show? Like, are they like pranking the audience, or what's the...
No, like it's all intentional.
Well, that I get that, but like, are they trying to like prank an audience? Like, is the audience going to a play they think is legit, and these people are?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
So I'm just trying to imagine this in my head.
No, because there's one character in a couple episodes that really plays to the audience, and like all of a sudden he'll be like depressed, and they'll go, "Aw," and then all of a sudden he'll get all happy and excited, and he'll do it again to get the reaction out of him again.
Okay. I was wondering why I never saw this, and until I saw that's not Amazon original, which means Amazon's not going to promote it.
No, it was funny because I first came across it on YouTube, and the play that I saw that was on YouTube wasn't even in the shows that is on Amazon.
Okay.
So I think it's something that they've been doing for a while, but someone decided to air it on Amazon.
Well, it looks like it's the people that did the play That Goes Wrong, which I have heard of. That's interesting. One
of the actors, he reminds me a lot of like a Tim Curry kind of character. He's just a bigger dude, and he's always got like after you watch the first episode, you'll kind of see it.
There's so many jokes I could make with that, but I can't say any of them. Yeah, I'm trying to think because like you mentioned this before, and I forgot about it. Mostly because Amazon doesn't promote shows that aren't Amazon originals. Mm-hmm. So unless you see it from like another YouTube channel, you're never gonna know it exists, which is sad. But I'll have to. There doesn't appear to be that many episodes of it either.
No, there's like 8, I believe, and I've watched all but one of them so far.
This here says 7.
Oh, 7 then.
6.
Yes,
Yeah, this is BBC, so it's going to be all.
So sure, yes.
They got a season 2 coming though soon. It looks like
it'll run for like 15 years with like 12 episodes.
It's fine with me. They're real fun to watch.
I'll have to give it a shot. I like British humor. There's
one scene that had me dying. It was they're in a World War II setting, and all of a sudden, they have like a pull down thing that keeps popping up, and actors are behind stage working with like set crew. And all of a sudden he comes up, and the director, who also is one of the actors, just starts yelling. It's like, "Stop standing in the window. We don't need to see you." And one of the actors, the Tim Curry kind of guy, was like, "See, Chris, now this is why everyone thought you should have played Hitler."
I mean, I do love shows like that where stuff intentionally goes wrong. That's one of my favorite Impractical Jokers pranks, is the one where they do a play that intentionally messes up. So I have to watch it for that. I just feel like a British version is going to be so polite. That's what I'm curious about. Alex, what about you?
Going with something a bit older, I watched what is now the oldest film I've ever seen, which is like feature length. You know, everybody's seen like the fucking Train Arrival short or whatever, but I watched All Quiet on the Western Front, the 30s film. I think it was 1930.
Is there an earlier version of that?
There might be I don't think so, because it started production as a silent film and then they switched over.
Okay.
I think that's one of the big things about this one is it's one of the earliest sound films. It was the first war film to win Best Picture. It was the first film to win Picture and Director. And it was called something else then, but same thing. And I think most impressive is like how much of what makes like sound film great, how it powers it, the performances, like how much of that carried on, like how they kind of some people instantly had like this mastery of it, like right away. And this is one of those films where like, you know, the practical effects are amazing and you can watch it now and everything about it is still great. The performances, the direction, a lot of very subtle direction, nonverbal direction. And it was also pre like Hollywood production code, which becomes very obvious very early because it's very sad and like brutal. So you're not used to seeing that. If it's like a 30s film and, you know, someone goes blind from an explosion, you know, stuff like that. It's very harrowing. And, you know, a great anti-war film that was so like striking in its themes and like the anti-war stance that a bunch of countries banned it. Like Germany banned it for being unpatriotic. Yeah, this was during a certain person's reign. And it depicts it's World War I and it depicts a group of German soldiers. That's the other thing is, you know, World War I was a much murkier war. So they decide to, like the novel is, they adapt it as the German soldiers.
Is this on anything?
Unfortunately not. I'm sure it'll pop up somewhere. It's, you know, it's a very famous. I mean, this is one before I started getting into classics. Like I had heard of it, like just because of how powerful it is and how impactful it was for like really thought-provoking war films. And the trench scenes are incredible, like in terms of the scale, like just whole armies, you know, charging, real explosions, stuff like that. And it really, you get a real clear view of how bad the trenches were too. It gives a complete view of everything.
But that's the
And just
thing.
like that, how they get sucked into war, like how they get sucked in by propaganda and stuff.
That's the thing about older movies is they truly did not give a shit and did everything real. I mean, if they filmed a battle, they filmed a battle.
Well, you don't have CGI where we can create little minions to do it.
Well, there's no CGI. There was no miniatures. There was like they did stuff full scale.
Yeah, some of these I'm like, how did they not blow someone up on that?
We killed people.
Like example of that would also be like the original Spartacus.
Oh yeah,
the original Spartacus chariot race scene where they actually made the people race like a bonus to whoever actually won, and then people got like seriously hurt.
That was Ben-Hur.
Oh, Ben-Hur. Fuck, yeah, you're right.
I love both of them, but yeah, Ben-Hur is the one with the massive chariot race.
But it's like the original, like old school Ben-Hur.
Yeah, very clearly real chariot race, like where it's like, oh, they just flung that guy from a chariot.
Yeah.
Like
the other one that I've personally seen is The General. Buster Keaton, great movie. There's a scene where they crash a train off a bridge, like a Civil War train, like off like an elevated bridge into a ravine, and they did that by actually crashing a train into a ravine, and I'm pretty sure it might still actually be there.
Funny thing about like the really old ones, they didn't even think about how to like get rid of it.
Yeah, like they just crashed and left it there. And All Quiet in the Western Front was kind of the same thing. They didn't care.
Yeah, and that reminds me of Bridge on the River Kwai too, how they built a bridge to blow it up.
What are you guys going to do with this? We're going to blow it up.
Nothing. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it, studio. Just give us the infinite check. Okay. But yeah, and I mean, All Quiet on the Western Front is just like thematically so impactful. I think it absolutely has one of the best closing scenes and closing shots of a film ever. Like it'll haunt you forever.
Okay, I was wrong. The train was removed in 1944, 1945. I had to correct myself
like
so I don't look stupid.
Yeah, one of our 3 viewers will correct you and comment in the comments section.
But I mean, I've heard All Quiet on the Western Front get bring up as a war movie because I mean, everyone when you think of war movies, everyone talks about Saving Private Ryan and how impactful that is. When in reality, All Quiet on the Western Front did that decades earlier.
Yeah, like the Saving Private Ryan like defined the modern style, but like a lot of what other war movies get praised for, like, oh, this was the first, cynical war movie. Oh, this one was the first one to show the horrors. Like, no, like literally one of the first ones did it. Like in 1930.
Well, that's why when any company or whatever their slogan is like the first whatever, it's like I'm going to take that with a grain of salt, and I'm sure I could find something else.
Yeah.
I also just think it's so weird just how little World War I movies we actually get.
I mean,
and it might be a factor of this movie, like being so early and being so good.
There's like, I can only think of like 3 major ones, which All Quiet on the Western Front, Paths of Glory in 1917. And one of those came out like 2 years ago.
I mean, does it have something to do with more of the trench warfare where it's like there'd be fighting and there'd be a lot of no fighting and then...
I think that might have something to do with it. Just that it's kind of be a very boring movie. It's
not like they're bombing different cities and it's a lot more. I mean, there was also not as many countries involved in World War I as World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also a lot more horrific of a war.
Yes.
I mean,
I think that might be the struggle too, because people, not everybody, not every studio wants to make like the super cynical, depressing war one, which are like usually the best ones, obviously, but like, sometimes they want World War II, where the heroes triumph in the end, even though it's really horrible or something.
No,
in this, it's like, everything sucks.
No, I don't remember.
Nobody won that.
I don't remember too much. Was America in World War I much?
Not really.
The last year.
That might be a reason too. It's like, especially with studios marketing.
That's a good point.
Yeah, they're all like British films. Like, I mean, All Quiet on the Western Front, I believe Lewis Milestone was American. No, Russian American. Well, there you go. And obviously 1917 is a British film. And I mean, Kubrick made Paths of Glory, but who is an American director, but he spent most of his time in England.
And the really big one that I say, if I want to learn about World War I, watch Peter Jackson's They Shall Not Grow Old, because holy crap, you'll learn a lot about World War I in a hurry.
Also, technically, nobody will consider Lawrence of Arabia like a war movie, but it is World War I.
Yeah, you're right. Technically, it's a World War I movie.
But nobody considers it a war. It's like more of an epic than a war movie. Mm-hmm. So
it's kind of surprising that we don't see more World War I movies, considering that's like that was when most like the tanks started getting involved, chemical warfare.
It's just really hard to come up with a story that people want to see, just because like World War II was a war that had to happen. World War I was a giant family squabble.
True.
That turned into like the biggest clusterfuck in history.
Yeah, because it was old school archaic military strategy mixed with new technology that rendered that useless.
And lots of people died.
because you know, when you can only fire one round every minute and a half, having everyone walk in a straight line right at the enemy, not that bad. When you have machine guns that can fire, 50 rounds a minute, becomes a lot more ineffective.
Yep.
And off the Western Front, I think there was a lot with that. It was kind of a useless war because it was. But anyway, with that, we'll move on to our main topic of today's episode, which is we're back to movie picks. We're back to one person picking a movie that we all have to watch. And this time is my pick, and I picked Stanley Kubrick's 64. It was supposed to be 63. I'll get into that later. But it's 64 classic Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Dr. Strangelove is a movie about a U.S. Army general that has a mental breakdown and sends all the planes carrying nuclear bombs to Russia to blow up and start World War III. And the U.S. president and other people have to go out of their way to stop them, because if the bombs fall, the Russian doomsday device will go off and annihilate all life on Earth.
Create a doomsday shroud.
Now, I know what you're thinking. This movie sounds dark. However, believe it or not, it's a comedy. It's a very dark comedy, but this is a dark comedic satire about annihilation in nuclear holocaust. Now, why did I pick this movie? Satire is my favorite genre of movie. I love satire. I love comedies that have big ideas. I love criticism pieces. And Dr. Strangelove, even almost 60 years later, is probably the premier example of the genre. It's aged beautifully. It's still relevant. It's still frightening. It's still hilarious. And I think people that like movies and people that actually want to make movies can learn a lot from this film. And to start off with, I kind of want to hear your guys' thoughts on the movie, generally speaking. Alex, what did you think of Dr. Strangelove?
I mean, I was blown away the first time I saw it. I think I loved it then, but it's another one, like I've talked about with Lawrence of Arabia, that just grows the more you think about it and the more times you see it and you notice more things. And that's just true with any Kubrick. Like, I think that they stick with you. But I mean, the commentary is just so on point. Like, it's so biting in the satire and the points it makes about, the politics, the mutually assured destruction, the I'm better than you measuring contest of the whole Cold War politic era. We can't have a mine shaft gap. So, and just the mastery of all those things. I think that this time when I rewatched it, I was just so stricken with like the direction and the visuals and how that drives the tension. But then underneath that is the writing at the same time that's so freaking funny. So you have this really tense direction that gets you like constantly moving, and then the lines themselves are really funny, so you're also laughing.
Just now,
Like love everything that General says. But yeah, continue.
See, it's interesting because I have not seen any Kubrick movie. It's been on my list of stuff to do, but it's like,
we need to change that.
I know
you just changed my whole agenda.
I was meaning to when they were all on Netflix, and by the time I went to watch them, they were gone. But anyways, so when you hear of them, you hear of Clockwork Orange and The Shining, and it's like they're all dark movies. So it's kind of funny when I finally watched this, and it was like, oh, this is actually a comedy and satire. It's like, I was not expecting this.
It's still dark as shit.
Well, I agree,
Yeah,
but it's dark humor, and I love dark humor. So I think I was amazed by it. It's still, I mean, watching it's been what, over 50 years almost?
Almost 60.
Almost 60. And I mean, I think it holds up against anything coming out now.
Better than like everything.
Yeah.
Well, because the themes of the story are still relevant. I mean,
Unfortunately.
Kubrick's whole point of view is that we can be so close to annihilation that it's funny. That especially in the Cold War era of the early 60s, like any little small thing could pop off and end with the destruction of the entire human race.
Well, I kind of find it funny that his whole thing is the guy couldn't get it up, so he blamed the Russians for.
Yeah, that's literally the whole point of the whole point of the movie starts because a general can't get it up and thinks it's because the Russians
are poisoning the water,
disturbed our precious bodily fluids.
Mariners Rick, have you ever heard about fluoridation?
I don't think so, Seth.
What's the big one of the big ones things that is that I don't turn down women, but I deny them my essence. Like, it's such a ridiculous movie, but the thing is in that time period, that's literally all it would take.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, like this is one of those that was like so on point that it caused problems. Like we just said with All Quiet on the Western Front. With this, I mean, like all the military organizations came out and denied that one general could do this and denied that anything like the Doomsday device would be made. And both of those things were real. Both of those things were real.
Not only that, they also had legal action taken against them because the cockpit of the B-52 was so close to like a real top secret plane that was, I think, currently in production or in development that wasn't like used yet, that the military thought someone had leaked documents.
They've stole our plans. They are Russian spies.
Yeah, and they're like, nope, we just got really lucky, I guess. But the writing is so funny. But not only that, the writing's made even funnier by the improvisation of the actors. And well, Kubrick's great, right? Kubrick, all-time great director. The blocking of this movie is amazing. The lighting of this movie is amazing. It looks great. Editing's great. The real star of the film is Peter Sellers.
Times 3.
He probably gives the best performances of his career. Well, I love Inspector Clouseau. He is a powerhouse in this movie. He carries this movie. He's so freaking funny. His ad-libs are great. And it's interesting when you have Peter Sellers, who is very much a one and done, maybe 2-3 takes actor, mixed with Kubrick, who wanted 30 or 40 takes of a scene. Like,
and then it works so well. Actually, and they worked together twice. He was in Lolita first, and then was in this. So, like, the fact that they worked well together is interesting.
Yeah, because they shouldn't.
Well, George C. Scott was great too.
Oh my goodness!
I mean, I
was just gonna say that too, man.
The scene where he's like walking backwards and also trips and rolls over. I'm like, well, that was clearly not what was supposed to happen, but he just keeps going, and it's like, well, that actually works really well.
His facial expressions throughout this entire film.
It just keeps shoving gum into his mouth.
Murdered me this last time. Yeah, that got me too. That was like the second time I watched this. I noticed that. I'm like, holy shit! Like he does not stop chewing gum. And this time it was just like his expression in every scene, even if he's like not the focus of the shot, like he's making some kind of like ridiculously funny face.
He's like a petulant child who's just like scowling in the background. It's really funny.
Who thinks he's always right?
And him and Peter Sellers together is just comedic magic. Like the scene about them flying too low, and he's got his arm and his arms out, imitating an airplane. It's such a funny movie. Sterling Hayden is incredibly hilarious.
He's the one who's like playing it like his guy's like completely straight, hard nosed, but that's what makes it so funny because what he's saying is outrageous. Because
he genuinely believes that the Russians have poisoned the water supply with fluoride and have caused him to become sexually impotent. And now we need to start World War III. And
it's like the first time I was like taken with Peter Sellers as Strangelove. Obviously, that's like the scene stealer. But this time, like I absolutely loved him as the RAF guy. Like he was just killing me.
Yeah, well, because him and Hayden. I mean, Sellers goes so well off of Hayden's seriousness.
Yeah,
especially in the scene where they get shot at. Like they get shot at windows, and Hayden just walks out the window and goes, "Good shooting, soldiers."
Like he's like, "Get over here! I need you to hold these while I shoot."
I can't do my stomach. Like,
and some of, and that's a really good scene to talk about the improv of this movie and how a lot of, and it's weird because actually I saw a bonus feature on DVD. A guy got the filming logs for the movie, like the script log sheets for each take. Mm-hmm. And he said that Sellers would do the first take as scripted, and with each subsequent take, change a line. No two takes were the same.
That surprises me a lot, considering how much you hear of Kubrick was such a stickler for what he wrote and how he wanted things done.
When you're dealing with Peter Sellers, like you have to know what you're getting in for.
Yeah,
because that's what Sellers did. He did improv. And a good example of that would be in the scene with Mandrake and the general. One of the lines he goes, "The string in my leg has snapped." He was supposed to say "the thing in my leg," and he ad-libbed for a take, "the string in my leg." And that whole line changed the entire character.
The final line of the movie is an improv.
Yeah, sure. The final line of the movie. What? That was an improv.
No, it's not even an improv. That's an accident.
Yeah, he mistakenly got up out of his chair, which I wanna get to the end later because the end I want to talk about with more of the story because I have a whole speech about the end.
Yeah, and I think I didn't know that he had like built in that much improv, but I mean, he's that kind of director where he's more versatile. Because again, there's a lot of fake Kubrick stories about how he's like, the world's biggest dictator on set or something.
The stuff about The Shining has been grossly over exaggerated.
Yeah, I couldn't believe to find out that was like completely a myth. Basically, that's based on like some third-hand person saying that they thought they heard. Like when everybody in it denies it. But I mean, there's improv in 2001, like the whole thing about him watching them in the pod was suggested by one of the actors.
So what you're saying is the stories of Kubrick are greatly exaggerated.
Oh yeah, big time. I don't think because he was so I wouldn't say reclusive because he had a lot of friends, but like he wasn't really in the public eye a lot and just kind of hung out at his home until he made another movie 10 years later. Like that ended up with a lot of myth making. Like, oh, what's he doing? Oh, he must be crazy.
And he was very much a look down work in the movie kind of director. He expected the actors to come in and know their stuff, know their lines, know their characters, and go from there.
Because he was very clearly focused on the look because, like, damn. Like, this film looks amazing.
It's the use of lenses specifically is what makes it the crampedness of the airplane scenes, which we talked about acting. We forgot to mention one of the other highlights who doesn't get as much credit, and that's Slim Pickens as Major Kong.
Oh yeah, his opening scene where he basically hears the order and is like, okay, and he gets up and opens up a safe just to pull out his cowboy hat and like, we're going in.
The Rooskies.
And some people might know Sellers was supposed to be that character too, but struggled with the character, and then I think filming the bomb drop broke his leg, so they had to recast him. There are images that exist of him as the character, but no footage, I believe, has ever surfaced. But Slim Pickens is such a good pick for that character. Apparently I saw this. He showed up on set in a cowboy hat, cowboy boots, doing the whole Southern drawl thing, talking to everyone, and everyone's like, God, I can't believe he's already in character. Nope, that's just how he was.
Well, you look at him, he seems like the cowboy Southern buddy that you'd like to have.
He was literally a rodeo guy, wasn't he?
I think he was.
Which is just perfect.
Yeah, he's an actor and rodeo performer. That's so hilarious. But he's really good. And part of, I think, what makes the movie so good, especially in Kubrick's directing and the acting in the script, is that everything is played super seriously. No one's really trying to go for laughs, and that's what makes it funny. There's this super ridiculous shit going on, and that's what's funny. But the actors are saying the lines. I mean, George C. Scott gets kind of cartoonish with it, but you could genuinely believe that there would be a general that would act like that in a meeting.
Yeah. Well, they play it straight enough where it's like, you know, of someone would play it that, or who's that. What I want to say.
Yeah, that's flamboyant, because I mean he does that in Patton. That's like him in Patton. This is like the preview of him doing that, which is like a serious movie about Patton. But this in here, it's so comedic.
And there was a Sellers' versatility with that. I mean, you have three characters he plays that are both very different. President Merkin Muffley is pretty serious. He wasn't supposed to be. He was really supposed to be asthmatic and like super weak with this giant. Because there's images of him in press photos of him with a giant inhaler. It's like as big as his head. That got removed because they wanted him to be more of a strong character. But they have him. It's really interesting scenes of the President Merkin Muffley with Dr. Strangelove, because you have Peter Sellers being both the comedic character and the straight man in the same scene.
Yeah, I don't think it would have worked. I don't think it would have worked that great had he been a weak president.
No.
Yeah, because like he's playing it completely straight and focused as he's going like, telling the Russian president to keep his feet on the ground because he's jumping up and down and throwing a hissy fit on the phone.
Hi, Dimitri. We have a small problem, Dimitri.
I'm just as sorry as you. Don't say you're as sorry as I. More sorry than me. I'm capable of being equally sorry.
We may have lost one plane.
Can't you shoot that? I mean, I normally hate the one-sided phone call, but he's so good at it. It
works really. It works really well here, considering what you're projecting in your mind of what the other person is saying works so much better.
Yeah, him saying like, "Don't get so hysterical, Dimitri. Keep your feet on the ground." Like all these things like that you can't see, so like you're imagining how funny that has to be, and just seeing his reaction.
Well, and his expressions too. Like when he gets the phone call from him from the Russians with no knowledge that the plane has not been shot down. And you see his face kind of dipped. Oh, what do you mean there's a plane not shot down?
Are you sure you didn't get it?
I'm looking at the big board, and the big board says that.
They're going to see the big board.
Well, actually, going off the big board, I have to say this. Apparently, when Ronald Reagan was president, he went and asked to see if he check out the war room, and they had to tell them that there is no war room.
That's got to be disappointing.
It's like, but I saw it on Dr. Strangelove.
That's a movie. It's not real.
That is disappointing.
It's really disappointing. And actually, what's disappointing with this movie is I don't know if I'd call this movie forgotten.
No.
But it's not nearly as revered as it should be.
Not as much as his other films.
Yeah, Kubrick has such a big filmography that all of his films dwarf this. I mean, this movie would be the highlight of any other director's career, but the fact that it's Kubrick.
Yeah, I know. Like I absolutely love this film, and it's like, I don't know, like my fourth Kubrick, my third. Like it's ridiculous.
This might be a hot take. I don't know if it's Kubrick's best film, but it's certainly my favorite of his.
That's not even like it's so good and so well regarded that I don't think that's a hot take. Like it's
If you said that at a film college, like a film school, with people that have only seen 2001,
you'd probably
they
get
might think it's a hot take.
Yeah. Well, people who have only seen that and then like two other Kubricks and then only stuff since 1990 are going to be like, how dare you?
But because I think this is a film that you have to see multiple times. I do think that there are people that watch this movie the first time and think it's insanely boring. I have a coworker that had to watch it for a film history course that was them watching the greatest movies of all time, and he fell asleep, and that hurt me.
That hurt me.
I can see how that could happen. But
I think, and one thing that's interesting, the second time I watched this, I watched it with my parents, and it's fun to see like the reaction of people who who lived in that era, right? To see people who lived in the nuclear paranoia era watch this and like just laugh at all of that, like. That was like real. Like, I mean, we still have it now, but then it was, from the 60s till the end of the 80s, this was reality, like at any moment.
Yeah, for any reason.
Which, like I said earlier, like this could happen at any moment. And that's what makes it terrifying because we still haven't really escaped that.
No.
Like we still really haven't. I mean, it's not nearly as bad as it was in the Cold War, especially. I mean, if this was made in the Kennedy era. So
yeah, this was like 2 years or less after it was 15 minutes away from happening.
Yeah, like this was really bad, and that's why like Kubrick was so terrified of nuclear war. He wanted to make a nuclear war movie. So he picked Red Alert, which was a novel that was a thriller, super serious thriller. It's like, you know what, this would make a very good comedy. And it's strange seeing that as an adaptation because, like, one of the scenes everyone talks about with this movie is the opening scene, which is planes refueling midair.
Mm-hmm.
In the book, it's super technically accurate and super, like, mechanical. In the movie, it's like a sex scene.
Yeah. It's a sex joke.
It's really funny. It's a sex joke. And that sets the tone for the entire movie.
Well, it also kind of shows that Kubrick was a little ahead of his time. I mean, the fact that this came out not too long ago, that there was possible of a nuclear war, and now it just fits in today's climate as well.
It shows about crisis and talks about crisis. Kubrick knew how to put a movie together. Him and Terry Southern together. I mean, Terry Southern's work on this movie should not be ignored. He made it as funny as it is. I absolutely love it. I adore every scene. The more times I watch it, the more I laugh. But also the more intense it gets. It's a very tense movie. It's really funny, but it's extremely tense.
Yeah.
It also goes into one of my research fascinations is lost media, and this movie has tons of lost media associated with it. You have the scenes of Sellers playing Kong. You have the cut scenes of Sellers with the inhaler in the other Mandrake or in the other Muffley scenes. You have the infamous lost line. So one of the lines Major Kong says, which is one of the really funny bits, is he takes a box. All people on this plane have a kit if they crash land in Russia. which has a box of different rations like pantyhose, a book of that's the Holy Bible in Russian phrases in a little mini volume, a bunch of stuff, and then Major Kong says a fella could have a great weekend in Vegas with all this stuff. He actually, and if you watch the movie, you can see him say this. He actually on set said a fella could have a real good time in Dallas with all this stuff. But Kennedy died. Kennedy was assassinated 4 days before the movie was supposed to come out.
Oh.
And so they went in and they redubbed that line to say Vegas instead of Dallas.
Fastest redubbing in Hollywood history.
Well, the film did get pushed back until January 1964. It's why I said 63 earlier, because I thought it was 63, but actually got pushed back to 64 because of Kennedy's assassination. Because a movie about the U.S. president trying to save the world from nuclear destruction was probably not a good fit less than a week after the president was assassinated.
After the height of the nuclear,
and it's a comedy.
There was also a Sidney Lumet movie that was a really that was about nuclear war. Same kind of plot that Kubrick and Columbia sued to get delayed 6 months, and that worked. Basically, nuked that film commercially.
Which one was it?
I don't remember.
Was it Failsafe?
It might have been.
It was.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been thinking about watching it. That's Sidney Lumet did basically Serious Strangelove.
Yeah, the same time as Real Strangelove, and got sued. But as I was saying, the real big last minute moment with this movie comes with the end. The end they originally shot, which is infamous because it's never been seen, still exists, but it's never been seen, was a pie fight where all the people in the war room get into a pie fight. Because if you haven't seen the movie, spoiler alert, but they fail to stop the planes. They drop a bomb, and the Holocaust happens. And right before nuclear war happens, to symbolize the missiles flying, they have a pie fight. And the problem is the actors had way too much fun, and were smiling and laughing the whole time. When they're supposed to be serious as they did it, they're supposed to be like stone-faced serious throwing pies, and instead they're actually laughing. So the scene got recut, taken out, and replaced with a blown take of Peter Sellers as Dr. Strangelove, who stands up and says the infamous final words, "Mein Führer, I can walk." And to me, the ending is the most genius part of the movie because it accidentally creates what I think is one of the most thought-provoking final themes of a movie. So they're afraid the bombs are dropping, and that's the genius part of the structure of this movie, is that the three different narratives are happening at the same time, but the characters in each storyline don't know what the other characters are doing. So the characters in the war room don't know that Major Kong, in one of the most classic scenes, people that haven't seen the movie know what happens, rides the bomb down. He physically rides the bomb that gets down until it detonates on the surface. They don't know that happens. And they're talking about what they could do to survive. And the whole big plan is creating an underground mineshaft society of powerful men and hot women to kind of restart the earth in 100 years when the radiation fades. And it's such a genius idea because the Dr. Strangelove, former Nazi scientist, talking about this plan, he's a crippled, feeble man in a wheelchair who, like Lazarus rising out of the grave, as they talk about this mineshaft idea, starts to rise up, pursuing the Nazi salute and all this stuff. It's really funny, but it's also terrifying because it symbolizes that in this time of crisis, the United States, land of freedom, is willfully accepting and embracing Nazi ideas. Mm-hmm. They are accepting and going full force with eugenics, with genetic purity.
10 women for every male.
Yeah. All this stuff, which is basic greed. And that, to me, for a comedy to talk about that is genius. It's terrifying.
Well, that's the best part about it, because you're laughing at it and then you're like, okay, that's not actually that's not right.
Yeah. it's about government embracing totalitarian ideas in the face of crisis. It's scary, but it's genius. I mean, and then they all blow up.
And it still makes it hilarious.
Yeah, it's still so freaking funny, and that's like what makes this film so genius to me, is that it's genius satire, and that it makes you laugh. It nukes what it's criticizing, pun intended, which is which is government kind of how bad the government is at stopping a crisis, and just how close we are. It's so good at that it makes you think at the end, and that's what good satire does.
Well, I think now you know damn well a studio would make them have a voice of reason character who solves the crisis at the end, and not let them nuke everybody in the movie.
You could not make this movie now. You could not.
Unless you're like one of the super powerful directors. Like if Kubrick was still around, he could still make it. But
even like Aaron Sorkin tried.
Who Kubrick was then could not make this now, if that makes sense. Yeah, like the Kubrick he was at that time, he would have needed to become like as powerful as he was after a few more movies.
Because Aaron Sorkin even tried with Charlie Wilson's War, which did come out. It's a movie that you can watch. But the original ending, because the movie's about the U.S. trying to fund the Mujahideen in the 80s in the fight against the Russians in the Middle East, was supposed to end with 9/11, and this idea that we kind of create our own monster. Studio didn't like that and had them cut it. and people that have read that draft of the screenplay have called it the modern day Strangelove. So it's really hard to do because no one wants to end, because studios really hate ending movies with like bad endings. I don't mean bad as in like it sucks, but bad as in
it's a downer.
Yeah, it's
people
a downer.
Die.
Heroes don't win. And Strangelove ends with probably the worst ending you could possibly have, which is everyone dying.
Literally the entire world.
Yeah, the entire world being wiped clean.
Well, we need more movies that end in disaster. I mean, it's real world.
As long as it's poignant and as long as it's thematic and makes sense, I agree.
Right, because like you can do one that doesn't feel earned. Like I just watched a movie that felt that way, where it was like they didn't earn the dark ending, but like so many of the like most legendary films that they would point to, like we want a this or something, have like sad endings or that are really thought provoking. It's like I can't, why are they so resistant to it?
And well, because like in Doctor Strangelove, it makes sense. The characters don't deserve to win.
Right.
They don't. They're morons. They're greedy. They're selfish. They don't deserve to get what they want. And Kubrick understands that it's what works best for the characters. Studios. I mean, a great example of this would be Little Shop of Horrors, which had a original dark ending that thematically made sense. The studios made them reshoot after test audiences rejected it.
I think, and maybe the most legendary is, as far as one that came out, was Blade Runner, right? They had the original ending, test audiences, they get them riding into the sunset, which was terrible. And then, obviously the other cuts have been like legendary, one of the biggest sci-fi films. Like, you've got to go for what fits the movie, and you've got to trust the people making it.
And satire, in a lot of ways, should end negatively. I don't really know a lot of satires that end positively. Jojo Rabbit comes to mind, but
Borat's Village gets nicer.
But even
that's true.
But even in Jojo Rabbit, it's not like everything worked out for him at the end, though, either.
Right.
That's true. But other satires that I could think of: Network, 1984, Animal Farm,
Death of Stalin,
anything by Iannucci. Death of Stalin.
Yeah, in the Loop.
In the Loop.
That ending just was real. That just actually happened.
Yeah. In the Iannucci, Armando Iannucci is probably the closest we're getting to a Strangelove type satirist. I mean, In the Loop is kind of a modern day Strangelove.
Yeah, that's the one I would call. Like, obviously, Strangelove is better, but like In the Loop is excellent, and I would call that like the new age version.
Yeah, it very much fits in our modern sensibilities, and it's still really funny. It's not as scary as Strangelove is, but it has that nice mix of tension and comedy that I love with Satire. Another big reason, though, I think, before we move too much past this, why Strangelove can't be made today is Strangelove, in my opinion, needs to be black and white.
Yes.
Absolutely.
The black and white style for this movie, even though it didn't need to be because it came out in the era of color, it adds so much. I mean, and that's the big thing. People think black and white, oh, it's easy because there's no color. No, it's harder. It's way harder.
Yeah, you have to light it completely differently.
You have to get the lighting perfectly because otherwise the depth of the field gets mixed up.
Well, and stuff doesn't pop out that otherwise would.
And a film that takes place, like, the majority of the action is in two cramped spaces, the plane and the war room. Like, the war room in black and white looks incredible. Like, that has to be. And, like, a film that just came out, like, I'm going to say this should have been in black and white. I'm pretty sure Darkest Hour would have been better if that was in black and white.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Like, to spend a whole movie in a bunker, like, that's perfect for black and white.
I just feel like digital black and white also doesn't look as good as film black and white.
Oh, it looks terrible. You would have to shoot it on film, pretty much. Mank did it mostly successfully. They still should have shot on film, clearly.
Yeah, you make.
They wished it was on film.
Tried. And I don't want to hear people talk about like the Logan Noir cut and the Justice is Gray cut,
or the Mad Max Fury Road.
That shit was meant to be black and white.
Well, and when you watch it in black and white, you can it does not look nearly as good
because the lighting's fucked. I mean, that's the
like the Lighthouse is a great example of something meant to be in black and white that looks fantastic. Like,
because black and white, you have, and it's weird. What's really weird too is with black and white, you have to be almost more mindful of colors than you would be in a movie that actually has color in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you have to use different things to make them pop or to look right. I mean, the insane amounts of blood in Raging Bull that look fantastic in black and white, that was chocolate syrup. That's why it looks so good, like, because that color has so much depth in black and white. That's funny, like, you know, when they splatter the crowd, that's chocolate syrup.
But that's the stuff you have to do with black and white. I mean, black and white, filming a truly great black and white movie is so hard, and I can't think of any reason why this movie should be in color.
No,
I can't think of any. One thing I would do better is the audio in this movie.
Yeah, that's my one issue with it. Is the sound recording's not great. Characters.
Yeah, I mean, it was decent. I don't think it was mono, but it sounds kind of like mono.
Well, the issue I had was specifically how he recorded it, of like characters when they're too far away, you can't hear them great because they're too far away from the camera.
Yeah, when they keep doing those wide shots in the war room, stick out quite a bit.
I feel like that was intentional, but I don't think it worked super great.
Yeah, he was still like, this was, I believe, the second film he did in England, because after Spartacus, Kubrick was like, yeah, I'm done with studio shit, I'm just doing my own shit, and went to England. So he literally had his own studio.
I don't think this was at that point yet.
Like, technical capabilities. Yeah, he was doing it at this point.
No, because he made this with Columbia. This was a studio movie, and he didn't have a studio in London already set. He filmed at a different, because he almost filmed this in the States, but then he decided in a London studio because he felt the climate was better for filming some of the scenes in the planes and stuff.
But he shot this in England.
Yes, but he almost shot it in the States though. His studio wasn't set up yet. It was not filmed on Kubrick's London studio. It was filmed in someone else's. It wasn't Pinewood or anything. But it's supposed to be before, I believe, he made the permanent move to England.
From what I can say, he did it during this movie.
Okay, I thought it was around this time because technically this was a studio movie. It was made with Columbia money. Yeah, because I'm reading on this. He couldn't make it in the U.S., so he went to London so we could make it, or England so we could be because of how politically they wouldn't want him to make this movie.
Yeah. Which is the same thing that happened with Lolita. So then he would just did his second in a row there, and that's like, well, then why would I go back?
But the problem is now a bunch of indie film people think they can all pull a Kubrick.
Oh yeah, you get the people who get like crazy egos who think like, oh, I don't need anybody.
I can just move and make my own movies when only Kubrick can do that.
Yeah, Kubrick had also done. I mean, he had like 4 big hits to his name at this point because he did The Killing, which was really successful critically. Then he had Paths of Glory, which had success critically and commercially. He did Spartacus, which was a massive hit, like, and again in both categories. And he had Lolita, which did well. So, like, you know, it was already a big name.
He had clout, and Strangelove added more clout. And then he did 2001, probably not too long after this.
Yeah, that was his next one. It just took like 4 years to make.
And 2001 launched him into the freaking stratosphere.
Yeah, that's when he had like infinite power. Even then, he still couldn't get the Napoleon one made somehow. But other than that, he did whatever he wanted.
Because the Napoleon one would have cost the GDP of a small country at that point in time.
They should have given it to him. It would have been huge. Because then he just used the set, like a lot of the same costumes and set stuff to make Barry Lyndon, which did well. I think that's his weakest one, but it's still good. Like, it's still very good.
We're talking about unmade Kubrick projects. Strangelove, believe it or not, was actually supposed to get a sequel, or Kubrick wanted to make one right before he passed away, and he wanted it to be directed by Terry Gilliam.
Ooh.
That's so good.
Who wanted to do it, but he was never told. He probably was told after the fact that he wanted to do it. He's like, damn, I would have done that. However,
it's them coming out of the bunker with a new society.
Yeah. It was gonna be called Son of Strangelove. It was gonna, and the script was never completed, but it was gonna be about him in the bunker, Strangelove and a bunch of women. But that said, though, Terry Gilliam said in recent interviews that before the pandemic shut down all production, he was going to make an unfinished Kubrick project that he said he had fully cast and was ready to go, and the pandemic happened and might have killed it for good. He didn't say what it was, but there's a good chance it might have been Son of Strangelove.
Yeah, there's only so many that had a script, so.
Well, he never said script; he said idea, which has me thinking it might be something because Son of Strangelove never had a script. So it might have just been Kubrick, which I kind of wish there was one because I'm worried about Gilliam writing the script for it.
One was written for whatever Gilliam was working on. I don't know if that means it was Kubrick written or Gilliam wrote it.
Gilliam would have had to write it because I don't know if there's a ton of Kubrick finished scripts. There is the one that they're making.
Napoleon. I think Napoleon is the only other one besides that other one.
Because there's the other one that's being made now, not by Gilliam, and then there's the Napoleon one that I think HBO owns the rights to or did at one point.
Yeah, somebody owns it.
I think Ridley Scott was going to do it.
Yeah, now he's doing his own one. I don't think it's based on the Kubrick one. Which sucks because I mean it's weird now that it still won't get made because like everybody knows how good it is. So like, why doesn't somebody just make it? I guess because then you don't have Kubrick's direction anymore.
Well, and I think that's part of it is Kubrick knew what he wanted to do, and then I think someone else kind of talked about last week with no one else wanting to do the Star Wars prequels because it was so much with Lucas's ideas.
Yeah.
I think it's the same kind of thing. This is a very Kubrick movie. Do we really want to do this? Apparently, it did get an opera adaptation, though.
Well, that's what
the last thing we knew about it was in May 16th, HBO was going to do it as a miniseries with Kubrick's screenplay with Cary Fukunaga as director.
Yeah, he's too busy now.
Yeah, and that's the last that we've heard about that.
He's doing Masters of the Air or whatever it's called now. The third Band of Brothers one.
The HBO is stupid for passing on.
Yeah, I can't believe they passed on that.
The big reason, though, I want to talk about this movie, too, is, like I said, satire is my favorite genre. I kind of want to talk about satire more because I think satire is kind of a lost art. I don't think a lot of people do it well or do it much anymore, and those that do don't always do it too well. We mentioned Armando Iannucci. He's great. I mean, he's probably the best satirist now. In the Loop is hilarious, but also terrifying. The Thick of It is great. Veep is great. The Stalin's great. He's mastered that mix of comedy and thriller mixed with commentary that I think we need for satire. But also, I think satire is kind of misunderstood a little bit. Like, to me, I mean, satire, the word satire is French for criticism. You need to have something you're criticizing. In Strangelove, it's government responses to nuclear warfare. In The Loop, in the Thick of It, that franchise, it's about British government and British government responses to different issues. There has to be something very specific. I think it's been lost. I think a lot of people think stuff like Scary Movie is satire. It's not. It's a spoof. It's not satire.
Yeah, and I mean that's like spoof parody stuff, and then there's the whole like people act like anything that has commentary in it and is funny is satire.
So in the case, satire doesn't even need to be funny.
Right, Ace in the Hole is like vicious satire, and it's not particularly humor. The only occasional humor comes from how ridiculous what's happening is.
Yeah, it just needs to be critical. It needs to have irony. It needs to have those two fundamental elements of satire. Because irony is the big one. There has to be some form of ironic events happening in order to be true satire. At least to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I just Googled satire just so other people thought. In satire, irony is militant, and I do think that is important. Now, not all irony is satirical, but all satire must contain irony, I think.
Yeah, all rectangles are squares.
And you search satire movies, and you get a bunch of stuff that I don't believe should be here at all.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like we talked about epics.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
Epics or epics.
Trying to play a game.
Yeah, satire is kind of the same thing now. Of I don't necessarily think, and we could be wrong, right? But I don't necessarily think all movies considered satire are satire.
Yeah.
Right, or at least by like general, if you Google, or see some random review, they'll call it a satire, but it's not really considered one or is one.
Now,
just like now, anything bigger than like $100 million is called an epic. Like that's not what an epic is.
Now, like some examples that I see, like the first one I have District 9, which before the show we said wasn't satire. I actually have to look back and change my answer. District 9 I would consider satire because it does have that irony.
Yeah, see, I just wouldn't because, like, I don't know. I think it's more good sci-fi because, like, all sci-fi has good sci-fi generally has like heavy commentary, and it does, but I wouldn't call it satire.
It has commentary, but it's critical of South African apartheid, and it has that irony in that the aliens are the ones being the aliens aren't the aggressors, the humans are. I would consider it irony for that reason.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't think it's the kind of irony you see in satire, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah, I get it. I just think the irony helps serve the criticism, which is why I would say Borat satire.
Oh yeah,
Borat is really satire. I don't know if I consider Get Out to be satire. I don't know if Get Out has enough irony.
I love Get Out. I mean, I'm the highest on Get Out of the three of us. That's not satire. That's just theme-driven horror with heavy commentary, or like it's psychological horror more. It's not like pure horror.
It has a little bit of irony with the whole "I vote for Obama for a third term." That's pretty ironic.
No, that's funny.
That's about as satirical as it gets. Is that
right?
The white liberals are the racists in the movie? I don't know if it's ironic enough to be satire.
Right. That's similar to how I feel about District 9 for me, where it's like there is irony, but it's not like satirical irony. It's just like baked into the themes it's talking about.
Ironic.
What We Do in the Shadows is not satire. I love this movie.
Definitely
it's
not.
not satire. Well,
There's no commentary.
We're trying to say that it's satirical in criticizing vampire stuff. That makes it a parody. That makes it a spoof.
Yeah.
Does not make it satire.
Yeah, they're not They're not doing satire on vampires. They're making like parody of that because they're not making any points about vampires.
Satire requires points and commentary on human nature and the world we live in. Like examples would be 1984, being a satire of governments and the idea of totalitarian regimes. Animal Farm is the one we're all taught in school, satire of the communist revolution.
Mm-hmm.
The Interview, fuck off.
It's a comedy. That means it's funny.
Satire. Office Space is definite satire.
Yeah, Office Space is one of the greatest satires. Like, I absolutely love Office Space.
I guess to better define the irony of satire, it's you need people. I feel like the irony of satire is people doing normal things and doing normal things in the real world in a way that makes fun of what they're doing.
Right. That's to me. It has to be like, it almost has to be funny, and even when it's not like comedic, it's like funny in how absurd it is.
Yeah,
like Ace in the Hole isn't a comedy, but like some of the when it turns into a literal circus, that's funny. Like
that's irony. That's satire.
Yeah,
that is satire. Fight Club, I haven't seen, but
I don't know if I would definitely not call that satire. That's just commentary. Although it does keep funny. I haven't seen it in a while, but I don't think I would consider it satire.
Is Hot Fuzz satire?
I don't think so.
That's more of
I
a
would consider it more
spoof.
parody.
Yeah.
As if you consider satire as being able to talk about media. I don't necessarily think that. I don't necessarily think satirizing movies makes you a satire because you're criticizing something that's like almost way too opinion driven.
The thing with Hot Fuzz, it's a parody of buddy cop movies. That's also a good buddy cop movie.
Yeah,
I was gonna say it's more of
it's
like
not really satire.
It's more of like a love to action movies than it is making fun of them.
Yeah, definitely because they like recreate some of the moments too.
Yeah.
Team America World Police.
Yes.
That's and for people that are wondering, this is the list from Goliath.com. Goliath's top 20 satire films of all time. That's what I'm going off of, just kind of seeing what they say. Thank You for Smoking. It's a long time since I've seen this movie.
I haven't seen one. It sounds like one.
it is. It's not entirely one. I wouldn't call it a satire. I call it satirical. I don't know if I call it a satire. It's good though. Idiocracy is definitely a satire.
Isn't it like a documentary at this point?
Yeah, Idiocracy is genius because it's like it wasn't very funny when it came out. It's hilarious now. It is amazing.
You guys weren't ready for this, but your kids are gonna love it.
Pretty much. Tropic Thunder. Again, I love Tropic Thunder. I don't know if it's not.
I mean, maybe in the way that they're making fun of Hollywood.
That's what would probably make it more satirical than the other ones and more satire.
But that's about the only thing I could see from it.
What the hell? WALL-E?
WALL-E.
The film satire.
I feel like WALL-E is like the ultimate
environmental message, depth to the story of a durable robot looking for love. You just said it was satire, but haven't described what the satire is.
I think WALL-E is like one of the ultimate movies that people try and act like it's deeper than it is.
Yeah.
Whereas WALL-E does not immediately stand out as satire, the film features a number of themes that can be read as a commentary on modern society. The film's central plotline sees the planet Earth in turn into a garbage pile. That's just, I don't know if that's really criticism, though. Right?
It's more commentary than.
It doesn't really criticize, and the stuff it does is pretty paper thin. Oh, we make too much garbage. Oh, we're going to become fat. Like that's not.
We're already there.
It's not super deep.
No.
So I guess it might be.
And that's only for like that's only like the second half of the film.
Yeah, and comment again, like we said, like commentating on something doesn't make it satire. Like, oh, this has themes about that commentate on stuff, therefore it's satire. No, it doesn't.
You have Airplane, which again, period out satire.
Yeah, that's definitely parody.
Number 4.
Just like Naked Gun.
Number 4, thank you God. Network.
That should be higher.
Network is pure satire. Network is amazing satire. This movie has been largely forgotten, but it's fucking amazing. This movie is a must see.
Yeah, I think it's like legendary among writers, and like no one else remembers it, which is unfortunate because it's incredible.
It predicted our modern news cycle and what happened with. I mean, everyone
reality news.
Everyone knows the "I'm mad as hell."
I'm not going to take it anymore.
Everyone knows that part. No one knows that, but it's great. I guess, for example, if it is satire, there's a scene with this fictional TV station trying to book like a black rights terrorist group leader on the show, and they're arguing over like royalty rights.
That's one of my favorite things.
Like genius satire, genius criticism. Number 3, Doctor Strangelove. We've already kind of talked about that.
I would hope so.
Number 2, this is Spinal Tap. Definitely satire.
Oh yeah, and that's I can't argue with. I would put Network and Strangelove above it, but it's like if that's not near the top, I would be upset.
Yeah. This is Spinal Tap is satire. It's amazing. It's so fucking hilarious. It's on HBO Max. Justin, have you seen Spinal Tap?
No, I have not.
You need to watch it. It's on HBO Max. You have my login. I know you're not using my Max as much as you should be. Watch this shit.
I'm watching you, not watch.
I can see what you are not watching. Okay.
Got it.
Damn it. Number 1, Blazing Saddles. Now. I know what people are going to say. They're going to call me a hypocrite because I do think Blazing Saddles is satire. People are going to say, but David, you said that you couldn't satirize movies. That makes it parody. I said that. But Blazing Saddles, yes, it parodies classic Westerns. It also satirizes racism.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a look at how stupid Westerns are. Like some of the parodies we talked about are, and kind of talk about. It's like, no, look at how ridiculous racism is.
Where are the white women at?
Where are the white women at?
Yeah, if we talk too much about them, we will start a fight. But I did enjoy it.
Well, we're talking about it as satire,
right? And I will say a point about satire. Blazing Saddles is really good. I think part of what happened to satire is the success of the Mel Brooks stuff that used more farce type techniques to do the satire. Everybody went, oh, that's satire. And then they did like big farce parody, like that kind of slapstick comedy. And then the satire got lost, and then satire like was gone.
I agree 100%.
But they still call it satire.
Right. And they still kept calling it anyway. It's like, no, this is like farce or parody or whatever term you want to use.
Like I said,
Blazing Saddles really kind of created the whole spoof parody train.
Yeah.
That led us to stuff like Airplane, which Airplane is amazing.
And Naked Gun.
Yeah, Hot Fuzz. Those are amazing movies. They're not satirical.
No.
Right.
They're not satire. Blazing Saddles is. Satire isn't the technique. It's not the technique. It's the themes and it's the storytelling. It's the content. Technique does not make it satire. Joke doesn't make it satire. Comedy doesn't make it satire. It's the content that makes it satire. And really, if Strangelove is my number 1 satire, this is missing my number 2, which is Brazil.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about Brazil on this podcast before, but Brazil is 1984. But it's a lot more comedic. It's a lot more slapstick, like Blazing Saddles. But the themes are still there. The criticism's still there. All the dark shit is still there.
Very dark.
And satire needs that dark shit. You shouldn't leave a satire film feeling good about yourself, or
you can have a good time, but it's like we're all gonna die.
I mean, you have stuff like Veep.
Could you believe if that actually happened?
Look, a good example is Veep. You're not supposed to watch Veep and think that Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, Selena Meyer, is a great president. You were supposed to be terrified. You're supposed to be terrified by how awful she is, how bad a person she is, and that, oh my God, our politicians might be like these people. They might be morons. They might be evil. We don't know. Satire exposes shit. Hell, Network was made fun of and mocked for not being realistic. It sure as hell is now.
Yeah, I mean, Ace in the Hole at the time was Billy Wilder's like worst received film because it was unrealistic, and now that's like literally happened. Or like Network was acclaimed and was up for a bunch of Oscars, but the one thing they said was, "Yeah, but the networks would never do that," and then they did. Yeah,
it's absurd, and we've gone away from that because now it's satire has to be ha ha funny like, but it doesn't necessarily need to be.
Just it has to be ridiculous and over the top.
Yep. Well, good example of that, Justin. Justin will agree with me on this, although I hasn't read these, but Justin has. Mark Russell's Flintstones comic book run.
Oh, yes.
Some of the greatest satire made in the past 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit. That is so freaking funny, but also terrifyingly dark because it uses cavemen to kind of talk about modern issues. Because what better way to talk about like the issue of gay marriage, like going back to when marriage was created and talk about just the absurdity of marriage in general, or to talk about science versus religion by talking about the creation of religion and the creation of science. His Flintstones run, and I guess to a lesser extent, the Snaggle plus Chronicles, which is also written by Mark Russell, but isn't nearly as good as the Flintstones run.
Shows Jetson one too.
Yeah, Jetsons. I don't know if it's satire. It's commentary for sure.
True. That one's more commentary than.
Yeah, and Jetsons just isn't nearly as good.
Yeah.
But the Flintstones one especially. Holy shit! That's one of the best comics I've read in a very long time. It's so freaking funny. I got it when me and Justin lived together. I was like, holy shit, Justin, you have to read this.
It's very deep, too. You're like, yeah. Was not expecting this from a Flintstones comic.
Yeah, because Flintstones is kind of a meme at this point. I mean, most kids don't know Flintstones from the TV show. They know it from the freaking vitamins and Fruity Pebbles.
Best vitamins.
Like they know them as marketing people, not TV show characters. Mostly because the Flintstones TV show has not aged very well. I watched it on MeTV recently. It's not great. It's really not that good. It shows you what satire is and what it needs to be. It needs to talk about difficult subjects. It needs to raise big issues. It needs to make really good points. It needs to have irony.
Ask the difficult questions.
Yeah, it needs to be big. And Dr. Strangelove, like we've mentioned, it does all of that and then some. It makes you scared. It makes you think. I mean, the line, gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room, perfectly exemplifies what satire should be. And also the fact that this is one of the most quotable movies ever made.
Oh, yeah.
That's the weird thing. Is Kubrick, I think, is more well known for his visuals than his writing. But his writing's pretty freaking good.
Oh, yeah. Consistently. I mean, I think this is like the biggest example, but there's definitely a lot of like dark humor in the other ones. This is just the one that's built entirely on that dark, ironic humor.
And it has Peter Sellers, who was a comedic genius.
Yeah. Just automatically, yeah.
Had great comedic timing.
I mean, I don't know if the dude was really a person or he was just
he literally said he... Did he literally say that?
Wait! I think it was people that said about him that he's a bunch of characters that all make up the person that's known as Peter Sellers.
No, he literally said that in an interview, like that he's like not a person or something like that.
Well, that was a joke that I took out of context.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because I've seen that interview. It was Gene Shalit talking to him. Even though Sellers was like, "I regret everything." Mostly because Sellers as a human is a subject that's probably too dark to talk about on a podcast about movies.
Yeah.
There's some real dark shit in there, but he left the world wanting more. He really, I mean, he died super young. He died like in his 50s, like early 50s.
Yeah.
But he looked like he was in his 70s. He was not a healthy person.
Yeah, I thought I saw Being there, and I thought he was wearing makeup, but like he was just in rough shape at that point because he played a character like older than he actually was.
It's not like today where you see Tom Cruise or Paul Rudd and they haven't aged a day in the last 20 years.
Peter Sellers had a heart attack at age like 32. Like he was not in good shape, which is sad. But he at least left us good performances like Dr. Strangelove. And with that, we're out of time. We've been talking about this movie for a lot of time. See this movie. I think it's on Stars for streaming. Otherwise, get the Criterion Collection version of it. It's so damn good. Comes with fancy packaging. It comes with replicas of props from the movie.
The Bible and Russian phrases.
It all comes with the Wing Attack Plan R pamphlet. It's so good.
It's one of the best physical releases ever. Like,
yeah, it's truly amazing, and it's a very high quality version of the movie. If you're gonna watch the movie or buy it, I recommend that you buy that specific version. But with that, we're out of time. Thank you so much for listening to Idiot Plot. On behalf of Alex O'Longest Mansell, I am David Yanish, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Idiot Plot. You can find us on Spotify, Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to get a notification every time we drop a new episode. Also, follow us on Facebook and Letterbox. The links are in the description.